Hi everyone, in today's video we're going to have a look at standardized and bought-in components. So what you need to know are first of all what standardized or why standardized components are used, to be able to give examples of standard components being used, and then what happens when standard sizes change for products. So standardized components. So these are components that must be able to fit other elements of a design. So one of the most significant breakthroughs in standardization was what's called the British Standard Whitworth screw. The thread which came through in 1841. So that is, if you look at the diagram here, to do with how the smallest diameter, the major diameter, the depth, pitch, and the angle that the thread goes all the way around. For this, threads made by different manufacturers had different angles, depths, pitches, which made replacing parts near impossible. So a metric international standards organisation system has now been adopted, which has been adopted in most countries, making things a lot more compatible. So that's why we've seen them before, the ISO, the International Organisation for Standardisation. So this is by basically making sure that all of these things are the same for everywhere. So all the screws, any screw you buy, obviously if you get the right length type of thing, but the threads will all be the same, the depths will all be the same. So you can replace parts and fix them a lot easier. That is, of course, except for USA and Canada who use their imperial system, which is why some things are not compatible. But it's to do with the whole just making it easier. Rather than make things yourself, you can buy these parts in because it's just much more convenient and it's not as time consuming, and it's not worth the money to make these in-house a lot of the time. So you got most common standard components, things like tyres, plumbing fittings, door locks, audio connectors, batteries, fuses, fitted kitchen units, printer cartridges, biro pen refills like memory SD cards. All these things, no matter what company you buy it from, should all come the same standard size. There'll be other companies that make them, like Duracell batteries. Like obviously Duracell is one company, but their AA battery will be the same as another company's AA battery because it's the standard sizes that they all come in. And it's all about making those, like making it convenient for everyone, making things can be replaced, making sure they can be fixed, making sure that you're keeping everything as easy as possible to do. The same like all the fixings for like plumbing and everything. So you know if you're doing plumbing, you know I just need one of these parts, I just need like an angle part. Those sorts of things. So bought-in components. So I mentioned it a little bit before. So these are used extensively where it would not be practical or economical for the parts to be manufactured by yourself, due to either the specialist number or the high volume involved. So the most common include things like fastenings such as screws, nuts, bolts and rivets, as well as electrical components like transistors and resistors. So we've talked about this in things like scales of production video, where they'll make a product, but they won't then make the bolts or the screws that go with it, because then you've got to set up a whole other production line. You've got to spend a whole lot of money setting this up, and it's just not financially worthwhile. Where okay, all these bolts and screws come in standard sizes. We can just order 10,000 or whatever, or we can just order all these screws in because we just know we'll make the holes for our parts, but we'll buy the screws in because we know that they will work. So it just makes it a lot easier to get these bought-in components. The only exception to that is where you have what's called vertical in-house production, where sometimes if they're doing certain projects, it may financially be worthwhile doing it. So then in their factory, they may set up another production line to do it. But for the most part, it's just not practical. You then got sub-assemblies. So there's things such like electric motors, hydraulic valves, gearboxes for cars. Suppliers will make CAD files of these products available in standard formats, so that manufacturers can easily integrate them into the designs. So most cars, unless you're getting like a really high-end car, like the gearboxes will be the same for all of them. Same like electric motors, anything like that, they'll all be standard, and you can buy like the CAD files for it, and then you just make them. Like they come as a kit that you can essentially put together. So the whole benefit of that being, you buy them in bulk, so you reduce the cost of it. No need to set up the manufacturing facilities to make the part because you can just buy them in. More consistency in the components, again with the whole ISO, and then time saved not having to do that whole process yourself as well. Remember the whole thing with the manufacturing, it's all about how easy can you make it in terms of like convenience of doing it, how fast can you do it, and how much cheaper can you do it. That's what you're looking to do when you're doing your manufacturing sort of things. And bought-in components and sub-assemblies are two very good ways, of doing that. So changing standards. So when standards used by manufacturers change, it can cause major problems to customers, and that's where you make something like product become obsolete. Now, when something becomes obsolete, it basically means I can't use it anymore. If you think, say, like everyone's got like a really old iPod where they had like the fatter charger, you don't make those chargers anymore. So now I can't charge my iPod anymore. So that's obsolete. As soon as that goes and my charger's broken, it's useless. I mean, obviously, I might be able to buy a second-hand one from like eBay, and some guy will charge me a fortune for it. But once you like remove parts, it becomes impossible to use again. So I feel like I pick on Apple quite a lot in some of these videos, but Apple are really bad at like things like removing the headphone socket. The introduction of HDMI. Some of you may be a little bit too young to know what came before HDMI, but you had the SCART cables. So that was the cables where you had the blue, red, and yellow cables that went into a head that then went into the back of your TV. So when you had like console, like really old games consoles, that sort of thing. Windows 10 causing software compatibility issues, and that still goes on. Anyone that gets really into their CAD stuff, so use like Fusion, they have issues with different like editions of Windows. New printers will not accept old cartridges. No disk capabilities for new laptops. Games consoles are getting a bit better at things like this, so they're making like backwards compatibility. So like old discs will work in new consoles, that sort of thing. But when the standards change, they're like, we change the shape of the socket, or we change the size of the battery, or we change the size of the component. Once that happens, if it's like a standard size, it causes issues for everyone involved. So actually, it's quite a serious thing to think about. And Apple are one of the like most common like troublemakers when it comes to things like this. Shame on you, Apple. So, a couple of questions to answer. Can you please pause the video, have a go at answer them, and then we'll go through the answers as well. Okay, give a definition of the term standard component. So components that must be able to fit other elements of a design. Explain why standard components are used. Makes manufacturers' jobs easier. Keeps production costs lower. What was considered the first standard component? That's the British standard Whitworth screw. Give 2 examples of modern day standard components. Batteries, fuses, memory cards, door locks, plumbing fittings, kitchen fittings, anything like that. Why are bought-in components used? Simply reduces the cost. What are the 4 benefits of using standard components? Buy them in bulk so they're cheaper. No need to set up your own manufacturing sector for it. Again, saves you money. Greater level of consistency, so you know they're going to be right. And then save yourself time because you've not got to set this whole process up again. And what can happen when standards change? You make your product obsolete. So that is standard components. If you've got any questions, send me a message on Teams or via email and I'll get back to you.